They said he didn't belong there. Too big, too intimidating, too dangerous for a quiet neighborhood that had never seen a dog before. The elderly neighbors stood at their doorstep, pointing at the massive German shepherd like he was a monster. "Get that thing out of here," she screamed. "We don't want his kind in our streets." But what this 140-pound gentle giant did 3 weeks later didn't just silence her, it changed an entire neighborhood forever. Sarah Mitchell's phone rang at 5:47 a.m., just as the first light of dawn crept through her bedroom window. Her father had passed away. The words hit her like a freight train, sudden, brutal, final. Within hours, she and her husband David were on the road, driving through tears and silence to handle the funeral arrangements. The ceremony was quiet, painful, a blur of condolences and paperwork. As they were loading the last box into their car, preparing to leave that small town behind forever, a voice stopped them cold. "Hey, are you really just going to leave him here?" Sarah turned around, confused. An older man was pointing toward the backyard. That's when she saw him. A German shepherd unlike any she'd ever seen. Not just big, enormous. His head was the size of a basketball, his frame easily 140 pounds of pure muscle wrapped in thick, golden fur that made him look like a lion. His deep brown eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, the world went silent. "He was your father's best friend," the man said softly. "They were together for 9 years. Nobody here will take care of him." Sarah's chest tightened. This dog, this living, breathing piece of her father, was all she had left. "We're taking him," she said, her voice cracking. David looked at her surprised, but didn't argue. They named him on the drive home, Sergeant. Her father had been in the military, and it felt right. But as they pulled into their neighborhood, a quiet, dog-free suburban street where everyone knew everyone, Sarah's stomach twisted with dread. Word had already spread. If you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, I have to say I'm a little heartbroken. Stories like this need your support. Hit that subscribe button right now. You won't regret it. Now, back to what happened next. As Sarah and David stepped out of their car with Sergeant beside them, they froze. A crowd had gathered in front of their house. Neighbors, all dressed in black, there to offer condolences for her father's passing. But the moment they saw the dog, everything changed. Faces twisted, whispers erupted, and then, from the center of the crowd, an elderly woman pushed forward, Mrs. Harlow, the neighborhood's self-appointed enforcer. Her eyes went wide with horror, like she'd seen a demon. "What is that doing here?" she shrieked, pointing at Sergeant like he was a weapon. "You need to take that beast back right now. We don't allow dogs here. We don't want them here." Sarah felt her blood boil. "There's no rule against dogs, Mrs. Harlow, and he's staying." The argument exploded right there on the street. Mrs. Harlow's voice grew louder, angrier, more desperate. "He's dangerous. Look at the size of him. What if he attacks someone? What if he attacks a child?" Sergeant sat quietly beside Sarah, completely still, his ears relaxed, his massive frame calm as a statue. He didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't even move. But Mrs. Harlow wouldn't stop. "Mark my words," she hissed, "you'll regret this." That night, as Sarah and David sat down for dinner, with Sergeant eating his kibble beside them, there was a knock at the door. "Police." "We got a noise complaint," the officer said, looking uncomfortable. "Barking?" Sarah was stunned. "He hasn't made a sound since we got here." They walked next door to question the neighbors, who confirmed they hadn't heard anything. The officer apologized and left, but it didn't stop. Over the next 2 weeks, Mrs. Harlow filed complaint after complaint. Noise violations, property concerns, safety hazards, every single one was dismissed. Sergeant never barked, never growled. He was the quietest dog Sarah had ever known. He'd sit by the window, watching the street with those deep, intelligent eyes, like he was studying the world around him, protecting it, even when it rejected him. And then came the night that changed everything. It was 3:23 a.m. when Sergeant started barking. Not just barking, roaring. His deep, thunderous voice shattered the silence like an explosion. Sarah bolted upright, heart pounding. Sergeant was at the back door, his entire body rigid, his bark relentless, primal, desperate. David grabbed his phone. What's wrong with him? But Sarah was already moving toward the window. And that's when she saw it. Smoke. Thick black smoke pouring from Mrs. Harlow's garage, flames licking up the side of her house. Fire! Sarah screamed. David called 911 while Sarah ran outside. Sergeant was already there. He jumped the fence, all 140 pounds of him clearing the 6-foot barrier like it was nothing. He stood in Mrs. Harlow's yard, barking with everything he had, his voice echoing through the entire neighborhood. Lights flicked on in every house. Doors flew open. People poured into the street, half-dressed, terrified. Mrs. Harlow's house was engulfed in flames. Sergeant stood in her yard, barking with everything he had, refusing to stop until every single person was awake. Mrs. Harlow stumbled out, coughing, her face pale with shock. She looked at the flames, looked at Sergeant, and then, instead of gratitude, rage twisted her features. She stormed towards Sarah and David, screaming, "Your dog did this! I'm calling the police!" At the station, Sarah felt defeated. They'd saved Mrs. Harlow's life, and she was trying to have Sergeant taken away. But when they returned hours later, something was different. Barking. Multiple dogs. Everywhere. Mr. Chen walked a golden retriever. The Johnsons had a beagle. The Martinez family had adopted a husky. "We realized we'd been wrong," Mr. Chen said, grinning, "about dogs, about Sergeant, about everything." Within 2 weeks, the entire neighborhood had transformed. Dogs running in yards, families walking their new companions, kids playing with puppies. And Mrs. Harlow? She still complained, still filed reports, but the police stopped responding. She'd even been fined for false claims. She never said thank you, never apologized, but Sarah didn't need her to. Every evening, watching Sergeant play with the neighborhood kids and their new dogs, she understood what her father had known all along. A hero doesn't need recognition. He just needs to be exactly who he is. If this story touched your heart and you're still not subscribed, please don't wait any longer. Hit that subscribe button. What would you name this incredible dog if you were yours? Drop your ideas in the comments. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these incredible stories.